My name is Adam Andrzejewski, and I'm the CEO and founder of OpenTheBooks.com. We're excited about this week's ripoff of the week, and it's entitled, Is New York City Dead? A very relevant question in today's world. Before I get into the topic, I just want to review our mission at OpenTheBooks.com. Simply summarized, it's every dime online in real time. To that end, last year, we filed 41,500 Freedom of Information Act requests, and we've built together, you and I, the world's largest private database of public sector expenditures. So you can follow the money and hold the politicians accountable for spending our money for their tax and spend decisions. Today, I'm excited about this topic on New York City. Our auditors at OpenTheBooks.com, we've been into New York City on their payroll for years. Happy to share the findings. And before I do, I want to introduce my co-host, Tamara Colbert.
Good evening, Adam. This is going to be a very dramatic episode. So New York Mayor de Blasio wants a bailout. Tell us why New York City is in trouble with your new Forbes article out today.
So New York City is in trouble because over the course of the next 2 fiscal years, they project that their budget is underwater by $7 billion. And so Nancy Pelosi and the House, they've already passed the HEROES Act, which would bail out states and localities for the tune of $1 trillion. And New York City would actually get $12 billion of coronavirus bailout out of that bill to cover their $7 billion budget deficit. So Tamara, last week we saw the mayor, Bill de Blasio, he pulled a public relations stunt. He actually said that he would furlough himself and the 500 employees in the office of mayor for 1 week at some point between October 1st and March of next year. And that would save a paltry sum of $860,000. Tamara, they're underwater by $7 billion, and they want $12 billion of our money to bail them out.
Well, the worst part about the bailout, Adam, is that there's a $100,000 club. Can you share with our audience what that's all about?
Well, this is really why New York City is in trouble. The number one issue of any municipality is the level of compensation for their employees. And what we found in New York City is that there are incredibly 114,000 city employees that last year in 2019 made more than $100,000. Tamara, I want to put that in perspective. The entire state of Texas, according to our captured data at OpenTheBooks.com, has 78,000 employees at every level of Texas government, state and local. Florida has 50,000. New York City alone has 114,000. And I want to share with you who's making the big bucks.
Please.
There are school district janitors in the New York public schools making $256,000, and they're out earning the school principals.
It's amazing.
54 of which are making less than $154,000. There are plumbers helpers. The plumbers in the city need a helper, and the plumbers helpers can make $172,000. Thermostat repairmen made up to $198,000 last year. Laborers made up to $213,000. Electricians lit up $253,000, and plumbers themselves made up to $286,000 last year. There's actually 6,000 city employees that out-earn New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo, and his threshold salary was $178,000.
That's unbelievable. But the mayor's office, let's go to the mayor's office, because his office is also spending the big bucks. They've got a huge budget annually, and they're obviously in the red.
Well, it starts at the top. And Mayor Bill de Blasio, last year, he made about $260,000, but he was out-earned by his first deputy mayor, who made almost $280,000. There are 3 deputy mayors that made between $241,000 and $246,000 last year. Now, Bill de Blasio's wife, she works as a volunteer. There's nepotism laws, incredibly, in the city that she can't get a paycheck. But what they've done is they've staffed her with 14 city employees that clean off to get collectively $2 million of city salaries. And so we took a look at that number. We compared her payroll of 14 city workers aiding her to Melania Trump's, the First Lady of the United States versus the First Lady of New York City. Melania, she only has 11 employees. But of course, Michelle Obama, she peaked out at 24 employees on her staff.
Wow. I mean, this is incredible. So we're going to keep going through this craziness of New York City. What about the Department of Education? We know it's underwater in how many states, but where does New York stand? New York City
So in
stand?
New York, here's the principle. You cannot educate children in the classroom if you're funding a massive education administration and bureaucracy. Incredibly, there's 50,000 six-figure educators in the New York City schools. They're making big bucks, but they're not educating children. The New York scores on 4th and 8th grade reading and math are significantly underperforming the national averages. Now, the chancellor of the New York Public Schools, he made last year nearly 360 grand. And let's put that in perspective. The education secretary, a cabinet level position at the Department of Education at the federal level, Betsy DeVos, she made 199 grand last year. So there's pay inflation in New York City.
That's unbelievable. And as we go through this, we've got to talk about police, the police department. That's been on everybody's mind. There's lots of stuff going on in New York City. Where does the police stand?
So recently, the city council and the mayor, they sliced $1 billion from the police budget.
Right.
That should enrage all New Yorkers at a time of lawlessness, looting, and all sorts of chaos on the streets and escalation of the crime. Here's why. We've been taking a look at New York City payroll since 2016. In 2016, there was 76,000 six-figure earners. They collectively made $8 billion. Today, the six-figure earners, there's 114,000 of them, and they cleaned off last year $14.6 billion, an increase for the most highly compensated bureaucrats of $6.6 billion. And rather than cut there, they're cutting from the police. It's an outrage.
It's a total outrage, and we all love the fire department. Where do they stand in all of this?
So the fire department, they've got about 19,000 employees. About 9,000 of them made over 100 grand last year or more. The top, they've got 4 assistant chiefs. The assistant chiefs make up to 302 grand. The chief himself, he's not even in the top 10. The fire department also created a firestorm a couple of years ago, and they fired a whistleblower who was allegedly blowing the whistle on some hanky-panky with the previous chief. She settled last year. She got $800,000. 300 grand went to her attorneys, and $500,000 made her the #1 most highly compensated city employee across the entire payroll.
That's unbelievable. Well, just like we've got an open the books San Francisco poop map, we've also got an open the books rat map of Manhattan. Can you share with our audience what's the rat map and how do the rats of New York City fare in all this?
So last year, in a co-investigation with the New York Times, our auditors at openthebooks.com, we fact-checked the mayor's promise of his War on Rats campaign. Tamara, they dedicated $32 million to exterminate rats. The mayor said he wanted more rat corpses. But what we found with the New York Times was that the number of rat sightings on the city streets was at an all-time high, and it escalated by nearly 40%. The rats in New York City outfoxed the New York City bureaucrats.
It's so, and not surprising, Adam, with everything that's going on. So our final bucket that we've looked at is the Human Rights Commission in New York City. It's the first time I've ever heard of a Human Rights Commission in any city. So you're going to have to explain that one to our audience and me. What is that?
So the Human Rights Commission in New York City is all about stopping discrimination. I'll read their mission: combat discrimination and fight to ensure that everyone can work, live, and visit New York City without discrimination and harassment. Here's the point. Our auditors found that the Human Rights Commission they don't pay their college interns. They
What?
force them to work for free. They have to, in order to get the internship, you have to be in college and you have to say that you'll work for free 112 hours over a 4-month period. They don't even pay their college interns. I think it's outrageous, and it's questionable as to whether it's illegal, because they say that they'll give them college credit. That's compensation. The IRS has ruled if you offer anything of value, they have to be paid because they're an employee. So I think this needs to be investigated by an enterprising class action New York attorney.
Hey, that's a great idea. And all they'd have to do, since the RAT program hasn't been effective, holy cow, they could probably take a couple million there and at least pay the interns some kind of a stipend. I mean, New York City's got their priorities obviously backwards from the Open the Books investigation. There are some final scoops I know that you want to give, and that is related to the overtime pay in New York City, which is jaw-dropping.
It's jaw-dropping, Tamara. Last year, our auditors found that all the city agencies, they paid out $3 billion worth of overtime and extra pay. Just on overtime alone, it was 32 million hours that the city worked. Okay, that's an average of $60 an hour of overtime. You've got some people doubling and tripling their salaries. You're going to have to go to Forbes, Why New York is in Trouble, and read all the gory details.
Absolutely. And we're going to post this right now. I know Miss Sagel is going to post that to our Facebook Live. But what's really important for all of you who are watching tonight, if you want Open the Books to keep doing these incredible investigations and providing the massive transparency for us, the taxpayer, the job that Congress actually refuses to do, the job that most of our cities refuse to do, Open the Books. Go there, openthebooks.com. You can sign up for their newsletters. Adam's got articles all the time, investigations on a monthly basis. We need your help. Adam, you get the last word tonight.
Well, more donations equal more investigations. And I encourage you just to give us $1 a day, $30 a month, set it up on a credit card on a reoccurring basis. We'll put it right to use to defend the taxpayer from coast to coast.
Absolutely. Forget that Starbucks daily habit. The best source of your additional income would be to go and figure out what is going on in all of our cities and at the federal level. Adam, thank you so much for a riveting Open the Books Facebook Live and our ripoff of the week. Join us next week, 6 p.m. Eastern, Thursday night, for what I don't know how we can keep topping our weekly show, Adam, but I'm sure we're going to figure it out.
It's exciting times. We'll see you back here next week.